The Corvan Emperor paced the throne room, his clawed feet clicking against the polished floor. Reports from across the Empire showed a disturbing pattern. Human strike teams had hit 20 supply bases in the past month. 3 shipyards lay in ruins. Even the sacred temple world of Karash had seen human boots on its soil. "How are they striking so deep into our territory?" the Emperor demanded. High General Korath bowed low. "Their stealth technology exceeds our detection capabilities, Your Majesty. And they have help. Species that once feared us now provide the humans with intelligence. Then we must make them fear us again," the Emperor hissed. "Prepare the World Breaker." Korath looked up in shock. "The World Breaker? But, Your Majesty, it has never been used in actual combat. The power requirements alone are worth it to end this human problem permanently," the Emperor cut him off. "They refuse to surrender despite our superior numbers. They continue to fight when any rational species would seek terms. This defiance cannot stand." He moved to a large viewing window overlooking the capital city. "Target their homeworld. Let us see how brave these humans are when their cradle burns." Dr. William Chen worked frantically at his console in Earth's Quantum Detection Grid Control Center. The system of sensors spread throughout the solar system had picked up strange energy readings from deep space. "There's something massive coming," he told Admiral Peterson over the emergency channel. "The energy signature doesn't match anything in our database." "How long until it reaches Earth?" Peterson asked. "At current speed, 72 hours, Chen replied. "But Admiral, whatever this is, it's putting out more power than anything we've ever detected. It might be some kind of superweapon." Peterson's face hardened. "Alert the President. I'm mobilizing the fleet." In the war room beneath Geneva, President Johnson studied the holographic display showing the approaching Corvan Armada. At its center was a massive vessel unlike any they had seen before. "Their entire fleet is escorting this one ship," General Hayes pointed out. "They're committing everything to this attack." Captain Wright, recently promoted and now commanding the advanced destroyer UES Retribution, joined the conversation via secure link. "The Alturian scientists have analyzed the energy readings. They believe it's a planet-killer weapon." A heavy silence fell over the room. "Can we stop it?" Johnson finally asked. Admiral Peterson stepped forward. "We've positioned the fleet to intercept them in the asteroid belt. Better to fight there than near Earth." "And if the fleet fails?" asked Foreign Minister Clark. "Then we evacuate as many people as possible to the outer colonies," Hayes answered grimly. "But our ships can't outrun theirs. Most of humanity would be lost." Johnson nodded slowly. "What about the special project? Is it ready?" Dr. Martinez looked uncertain. "The prototype works in tests, but we've never deployed it at this scale." "We're out of options," Johnson said. "Deploy everything we have." The largest space battle in known galactic history began among the rocks of the asteroid belt. Earth ships, joined by vessels from the Liberty Coalition, formed a defensive line against the approaching Corvan Armada. On the bridge of the UES Retribution, Captain Lisa Wright watched as the massive Corvan weapon ship moved steadily forward, protected by layers of escort vessels. "All ships, this is Captain Wright. Remember your training. Hit and fade. Don't let them target you directly. We need to punch a hole through their defenses." The first volleys of fire streaked across space. Human ships darted between asteroids using the natural cover to ambush larger Corvan vessels. Coalition ships added their firepower to the chaos. But the Corvans pressed forward, their numbers overwhelming. For every ship they lost, they seemed to have 2 more in reserve. "We can't stop them all," Wright's first officer said as another Earth vessel exploded nearby. Wright's hand tightened around the small pendant the Alturian child had given her, now attached to her uniform. "We don't need to stop them all. We just need to reach that weapon ship." She opened a channel to Admiral Peterson. "Request permission to implement Operation Spearhead." "Granted," came the reply. "Good luck, Captain." Wright turned to her crew. "Prepare for emergency jump. All hands to battle stations." On Earth, people gathered in homes and public spaces to watch the battle unfold. Emergency preparations continued, but many knew evacuation would be impossible for most. In Geneva, a communication officer approached President Johnson. "Madam President, we're receiving a transmission from the Corvan Emperor." The alien leader's face appeared on screen, mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile in his species. "President of Earth, you have fought admirably for a young species, but the time for resistance is over." He gestured to a display showing the world breaker moving inexorably toward Earth. "Surrender now. Withdraw all forces from Alturian space, and I will spare your homeworld. Continue to resist, and Earth will be reduced to molten rock." Johnson stood straight, her eyes cold. "Emperor, your offer is noted. Now let me make one of my own. Withdraw your forces immediately. End your harvesting of the Alturians, and we will allow your empire to survive." The Emperor's mandibles clicked rapidly in what humans had learned was Corvan laughter. "You are in no position to make demands." "We don't negotiate with genocidal empires," Johnson replied simply and cut the transmission. In space, Captain Wright's plan unfolded. While the main fleet engaged the Corvan escorts, the Retribution and 4 other fast attack ships slipped behind an asteroid the size of Manhattan. When they emerged, they activated their engines at full power, racing straight toward the world breaker. "They've spotted us," reported the tactical officer as energy beams lanced toward them. "Evasive maneuvers," Wright ordered. "Deploy countermeasures." Small drones launched from the human ships, each broadcasting signals identical to their parent vessels. The Corvan targeting systems, suddenly faced with 20 targets instead of 5, split their fire. 2 of Wright's ships were hit and destroyed. A third was damaged but continued on. The Retribution shuddered as a glancing blow struck its port side. "Hull breach on decks 5 through 7, reported damage control. "Emergency fields holding." "Distance to target?" Wright asked. 20,000 kilometers and closing, replied the navigator. 15 seconds to weapons range. On the bridge of the World Breaker, High General Korath watched in disbelief as the human ships continued their suicide run. "They can't possibly think they can destroy this vessel with conventional weapons," he said. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, voice shaking. "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the lead human ship." The Retribution closed to firing. Cringe. "Target their main power conduit," Wright ordered. "Fire the Sunflare." From the destroyer's main cannon erupted not a torpedo or energy beam, but a concentrated burst of quantum particles. Dr. Martinez's special project, a weapon that temporarily created a microscopic star. The Sunflare struck the World Breaker's hull and burned through it like paper. The quantum reaction spread through the massive ship's power system, feeding on its own incredible energy reserves. "Full reverse, get us away from the blast radius," Wright shouted, as the World Breaker began to glow from within. The Retribution and its surviving companion ship pulled away just as the Corvan superweapon exploded with the force of a small sun. The shockwave caught them, sending both ships tumbling through space. Throughout the asteroid belt, the battle paused as both sides witnessed the destruction of the World Breaker. The Corvan fleet, suddenly without leadership or purpose, began to break formation. Admiral Peterson's voice came over all channels. "All ships, press the advantage. Don't let them regroup." 1 month later, Captain Lisa Wright stood in the observation lounge of the UES Horizon, the same scout ship where her journey began. Around a large table sat representatives from 20 species, including the newly liberated Alturians and former Corvan subject worlds. The Corvan Empire had collapsed from within after the destruction of the World Breaker. Slave species had risen up, and even Corvan colony worlds had declared independence. President Johnson signed the new interstellar accord with a pen made from metal recovered from the Retribution's hull. This treaty ensures that no species will ever again face extinction at the hands of another, she said. As the ceremony concluded, a young Alturian approached Wright. She recognized the child who had given her the pendant, now slightly taller. "Your people saved mine," the child said. "All because we asked for help." Wright smiled. "That's all it takes sometimes." "The other species still don't understand," the child continued. "They keep asking why humans would risk everything for strangers." "And what do you tell them?" Wright asked. The child's large eyes blinked thoughtfully. "That perhaps the galaxy needed humans more than anyone realized, You showed us all how to fight for each other. From the viewport, Earth was visible as a small blue dot. Wright thought about how close they had come to losing it, and how much humanity had changed in such a short time. The call for help from a dying species had awakened something in humanity, not just the ability to fight a total war, but the determination to build a lasting peace. The Corvin High Command meeting chamber fell silent as Commander Draz finished his report. His once pristine uniform was torn, and a burn mark crossed his left arm. Of the 7 ships sent to punish the humans, only 3 had returned. "Impossible," said High General Korath, breaking the silence. "These humans are barely space-capable. How could they defeat our finest ships?" "Their technology is more advanced than our intelligence suggested," Draz replied. "Their weapons bypassed our shields. Their small attack craft were too fast for our targeting systems." "And they boarded your dreadnought?" asked another general, voice thick with disbelief. Draz lowered his eyes. "Yes. They stole data cores and took prisoners before we could activate self-destruct protocols." The Corvin Emperor, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. "These humans have become a problem we will solve." He turned to High General Korath. "Prepare the main battle fleet. We will crush their colonies one by one until they surrender or are extinct." "There is one more thing," Draz added hesitantly. "The human marine who captured me said something strange. When asked why they would risk their lives for Alturians, he answered, 'Because someone asked for help.'" The Emperor's expression darkened. "Sentiment. A weakness we will exploit." On Earth, the United Space Command headquarters buzzed with activity. The victory at Ganymede had boosted morale, but everyone knew the Corvins would return with greater force. Admiral Peterson stood before a holographic display showing the locations of all Earth ships and colonies. "The Corvins will hit us everywhere at once," he told the assembled officers. "We can't defend every location with conventional tactics." Dr. Paul Martinez, head of Advanced Weapons Research, stepped forward. "We don't need to. The Ghostmaker stealth system is ready for deployment." He activated a smaller display showing a new type of device. "Once installed on our ships, this system bends light and sensor readings around the vessel. To Corvin sensors, our ships will be invisible until they open fire." "How many ships can we equip?" asked Admiral Peterson. "With current production?" "About 30% of the fleet," Martinez replied. "We've prioritized our faster attack vessels." In another part of the complex, Chief Engineer Olivia Wright led President Johnson through a massive production facility. Workers assembled new weapon systems designed specifically to target Corvin vulnerabilities. "The data Lieutenant Phillips recovered was invaluable," Wright explained. "Corvin ships use crystalline power conduits that are vulnerable to specific sonic frequencies. Our new torpedoes generate those exact frequencies on impact." Johnson nodded. "How soon can we deploy these weapons?" "The first batch ships tomorrow," Wright replied. "Within 2 weeks, all forward bases will be supplied." Johnson looked out over the busy factory floor. "And civilian production?" "Completely. Converted to war materials," Wright confirmed. "Every factory in the solar system is working at full capacity. Volunteer rates are at 94%. The Corvins don't understand what they've started," Johnson said quietly. At the Space Command Academy, graduation ceremonies had been canceled. Classes now ran 24 hours a day, training officers and crew for the expanding fleet. Lieutenant Eric Johnson, barely 22 years old, stood at attention as Captain Lisa Wright pinned Lieutenant Bars to his uniform. "Your class is graduating 3 months early," Wright told the assembled cadets. "You've completed the fastest training program in Earth's history. But don't worry, the Corvins won't wait for you to get experience." She looked over the young faces before her. Some showed fear, but all showed determination. 2 months ago, I broke protocol to save 38 Alturian refugees," Wright continued. "I thought my career was over. Instead, I learned something important about humanity. When faced with injustice, we don't look away. We act." Lieutenant Johnson and his classmates saluted as Wright finished her speech. Within hours, they would be assigned to ships and sent to the front lines. In the diplomatic wing, Alan Morgan met with representatives from 3 alien species who had previously remained neutral. The Viridians, with their plant-like appearance, had always avoided conflict. The Nox, with their advanced computing systems, had traded with both sides. The Talarians, a species known for their caution, had never taken sides in any conflict, yet here they were, seeking alliance with Earth. The Corvins have long threatened our borders, the Viridian representative explained, but we never had the strength to resist alone. Your defense of the Alturians has shown there is another path, added the Nox, one where younger species stand together. Morgan nodded. Earth welcomes your support. Together we can form a coalition that even the Corvin Empire must respect. By day's end, the Liberty Coalition was born. 5 species led by humanity, united against Corvin aggression. The Corvin attack came as predicted. 50 warships entered the solar system, splitting into smaller groups to target Earth's colonies. Their commanders expected quick victories against isolated outposts. Instead, they found prepared defenses and invisible attackers. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision and vanished again before Corvin targeting systems could lock on. On Mars Colony, civilian defense units had prepared for ground invasion. When Corvin troops landed near the main settlement, they found not panicked civilians but determined fighters using the rocky terrain to their advantage. At Europa Research Station, scientists had transformed ice-boring equipment into weapons that melted through Corvin armor. The attackers, expecting to find unarmed researchers, retreated with heavy losses. Aboard the heavy cruiser UES Valiant, Admiral Peterson directed the defense of Earth itself. The planet's orbital defense grid, hastily expanded over the past weeks, filled space with mines and automated weapon platforms. They're pulling back, reported his tactical officer as the Corvin ships broke formation. 3 destroyers lost, 2 dreadnoughts heavily damaged. Peterson nodded grimly. They expected us to fight like them, ship to ship, strength against strength. They don't understand human warfare. In his command ship, High General Korath raged at his subordinates. How are they everywhere at once? Where are these weapons coming from? A junior officer, newly arrived from Corvin Intelligence, spoke hesitantly. Sir, we've analyzed human historical records. They have a concept called total war. When threatened, they convert their entire society to war production. Impossible. Korath dismissed. No species commits all resources to conflict. There must be balance between military and civilian needs. Not for humans, sir, the officer insisted. Their history shows multiple examples where entire nations dedicated all production to warfare. They called it mobilization. Korath studied the battle reports with new concern. The humans weren't fighting like an emerging species testing its strength. They were fighting like a cornered predator, with nothing held back. Send word to the Emperor, Korath ordered. This will not be a simple punitive action. The humans must be dealt with completely. On Earth, Colonel Sam Martinez briefed his Special Forces team, 12 men and women, the best Earth had to offer, prepared to board a stealth transport. Our mission is the Corvin supply base in the Proxima system, Martinez explained. Intelligence from our new allies confirms they're staging their main fleet there for a major assault on Earth. He displayed images of the base. We'll insert here, plant targeting beacons on their fuel reserves, and extract before they know we were there. The fleet will do the rest. A young lieutenant raised her hand. Sir, that's deep in Corvin space if we're captured. Then we'll have died bringing the fight to the enemy's doorstep, Martinez finished. The Corvins thought they could attack us without consequences. They were wrong. Across the solar system, similar teams prepared for missions behind enemy lines. The war had entered a new phase. Humanity was no longer defending. Now, they were taking the fight to the Corvin Empire. The Corvin response came faster than anyone expected. Just 36 hours after President Johnson's speech, alarms rang throughout the command center. Multiple Corvin warships have entered the solar system, reported Admiral Peterson. They're heading toward Ganymede Colony. General Hayes frowned at the tactical display. Only 7 ships? That can't be their full response. They're calling it a demonstration force, said Communications Officer Patel. Their commander says they intend to show Earth the cost of defiance. President Johnson studied the display. How many people on Ganymede? About 20,000 colonists, answered Peterson. The colony has minimal defenses. Johnson nodded, slowly. They expect us to either abandon Ganymede or send our main fleet to defend it, revealing our capabilities. Either way they win, Hayes said. Johnson turned to Peterson. What forces do we have near Ganymede? The battleship UES Defiance is stationed in Jupiter orbit with 3 support vessels, Peterson replied. Commander Steve Carter is in command. Get me Commander Carter, Johnson ordered. Moments later, Commander Carter's face appeared on screen. He was young for his rank, with steady eyes and a calm demeanor. Commander, you're aware of the Corvan force heading your way? Johnson asked. Yes. Madam President, we've been tracking them since they entered the system. They outnumber you nearly 2 to 1. Carter nodded. In ships, yes. But they don't know what we've been preparing for. Johnson exchanged glances with Hayes and Peterson. You have permission to implement trap protocol, Commander. Defend Ganymede at all costs. Understood, Madam President. Defiance out. As the screen went dark, Johnson spoke quietly. Now we see what humans can do when cornered. Commander Steve. Carter gathered his officers on the bridge of the UES Defiance. The battleship was Earth's newest warship, though the Corvans wouldn't know that. The enemy expects to find a token defense force they can easily destroy, Carter told his team. They'll be recording everything to send back to their command. Our job is to give them a message they won't forget. Lieutenant Karen Phillips, head of the ship's Marine unit, spoke up. Do we know their boarding capabilities? My team is ready if they try to take the colony. Intelligence suggests they prefer to destroy rather than board, Carter replied. But be prepared for anything. He turned to his weapons officer. The Corvans rely on energy shields calibrated to deflect standard weapons. Our new phase-shifting torpedoes should bypass those shields completely. And they'll never see our smaller ships coming, added his executive officer. Carter nodded. Deploy all vessels according to plan. Remember, this isn't just about saving Ganymede. This is humanity's first real stand against the Corvans. From the Ganymede colony observation deck, civilians watched as the 7 Corvan warships approached. They were massive, each one at least twice the size of the UES Defiance, which floated seemingly alone in space before them. Among the watchers were several Alturian refugees. A small child pressed her hand against the glass, clutching the same kind of pendant she had given to Captain Wright. Will the humans run away? She asked her parent. I don't think so, her parent replied. Humans are different. On board the lead Corvan vessel, Commander Draz viewed the single human battleship with contempt. They send one ship to defend their colony. He laughed. Perhaps they are offering it as a sacrifice. His second-in-command looked less certain. Our intelligence indicates this is a new class of human vessel. We have limited data on its capabilities. It doesn't matter. Draz dismissed the concern. Open a channel. Let's see if they will surrender before we destroy them. The face of Commander Carter appeared on their screen. Human vessel, Draz began. This is Commander Draz of the Corvan Empire. Your colony is forfeit as punishment for your species' interference in imperial matters. Withdraw now, and your ship may be spared. Carter's expression remained neutral. This is Commander Steve Carter of the United Earth Space Command. Ganymede Colony is under our protection. Any hostile action will be met with appropriate force. Drazi hissed in amusement. Your courage is noted, human, but courage without strength is merely a delay of the inevitable. We'll see about that, Carter replied before cutting the transmission. Draz turned to his weapons officer. Target their engines first. I want them to watch as we destroy their colony. The Corvans moved into attack formation, their massive ships spreading out to surround the seemingly outmatched Defiance. Their first volley of energy weapons lanced out across space, but the Defiance moved with surprising speed, evading most of the blasts. The few hits that landed seemed to do minimal damage. First phase complete, Carter announced on the Defiance. Bridge. They've committed to their approach. Deploy mosquitoes. From hidden positions around Jupiter's moons, 20 small attack craft suddenly powered up. Each was barely large enough for 2 crew members, but they were fast and carried weapons specifically designed to target Corvin weak points. The Corvin ships, focused on the Defiance, didn't detect the smaller vessels until they were already launching their first attack run. "What are those?" Draz demanded as alarms blared across his ship. "Unknown craft," his sensor officer replied. "Too small to be proper warships." The mosquitoes darted between the Corvin vessels, their precision, weapons targeting shield generators and weapon emplacements. They moved too quickly for the Corvin's targeting systems, which were calibrated for larger, slower vessels. Meanwhile, the Defiance launched its first volley of phase-shifting torpedoes. The weapons passed right through the Corvin shields as, if they weren't there, detonating against the hull of the nearest warship. "Impossible!" Draz shouted as his ship shuddered from the impact. "Recalibrate shields." "It won't help," his second said grimly. "Their weapons are shifting phase faster than our systems can adjust." On the Defiance, Carter watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "Launch boarding parties," he ordered. Lieutenant Phillips and her Marine team launched toward the damaged Corvin dreadnought. Their boarding craft barely visible to sensors attached to the hull near a weapons breach. The Corvins, never expecting to be boarded themselves, were unprepared for the heavily armored human Marines who cut through. "Their hull." "We're in," Phillips reported, moving toward their data core. Another Corvin ship exploded as mosquitoes targeted its now exposed reactor. A third began to drift, its engines disabled. Draz stared in shock at the battle unfolding around him. What had seemed like an easy demonstration of Corvin power had turned into a disaster. "Fall back," he ordered. "We must report this to High Command." Only 3 of the 7 Corvin ships managed to retreat from the Jupiter system. Behind them, the UES Defiance deployed repair drones that swarmed over its hull, fixing damage even as the battle ended. Lieutenant Phillips returned with her team, bringing valuable Corvin data cores and several stunned prisoners. "They couldn't believe we boarded them," she told Carter. "One of them kept asking why we would risk our lives when we could have retreated." Carter looked out the viewport toward Ganymede, where cheering colonists were already broadcasting the victory throughout the solar system. "Because that's not what humans do," he said simply. In the captured Corvin dreadnought, now being towed to Earth for study, a prisoner asked the human guard a question that would be repeated across the galaxy in the coming months. "Why would you risk everything for the Alturians? They are not your kind." The guard, a young soldier from Earth's Midwest, shrugged. "Because someone asked for help. That's all the reason we need." The Corvin stared in confusion. No concept in his language could explain such thinking. On Earth, as news of the victory spread, recruiting centers were overwhelmed with volunteers. Factories worked around the clock. Scientists, many inspired by the new Corvin technology to study, made breakthrough after breakthrough. The sleeping giant was now fully awake. Captain Lisa Wright stood tall as she faced the United Earth Security Council. 3 days had passed since the Horizon returned to Earth, with 38 Alturian refugees. The room was silent as the final footage from the Alturian homeworld played on the large screen. "This was taken 4 days ago," Admiral Frank Peterson said, pausing the video on an image of Corvin soldiers loading Alturians onto transport ships. "Our analysts believe they're separating the population by age and physical condition." President Nicole Johnson's face remained carefully neutral, but her knuckles were white as she gripped her chair. "Captain Wright, despite disobeying direct orders, your actions have provided us with critical intelligence. Thank you." Wright nodded once. "The refugees have also shared information about Corvin tactics and technology, Madam President. They're surprisingly open about their methods. They don't try to hide their atrocities because no one has ever challenged them." "That may be about to change," General Sharon Hayes said, standing up to address the room. She activated a holographic display showing military assets throughout Earth's territory. "I've run a complete tactical assessment of our capabilities versus known Corvin military strength." The display shifted to show simulations of various battle scenarios. Most ended with Earth forces retreating or being destroyed. In a traditional space battle, we'd lose, Hayes continued. But we have advantages they don't know about. Our ships are faster. Our targeting systems are more precise. And we have technologies they haven't encountered. Foreign Minister Diana Clark looked unconvinced. Even with those advantages, we'd be risking everything. The Corvins control dozens of star systems. We have Earth and a handful of colonies. There's something else you need to see, Dr. Daniel Cooper said quietly. He and his colleague, Dr. Maria Rodriguez, had been studying samples from the Alturian refugees. We've discovered why the Corvins are attacking the Alturians specifically. Dr. Rodriguez activated her tablet, sending images to the main screen. They showed microscopic scans of Alturian nerve tissue. Alturian neural pathways contain a compound that, when processed, creates a biological enhancement drug, she explained. It temporarily increases Corvin cognitive function by up to 300%. They're harvesting Alturians for their nervous systems. A stunned silence fell over the room. How many Alturians would they need to? President Johnson couldn't finish the question. Based on the Corvin population and estimated demand for the drug. Dr. Cooper looked ill. All of them. President. Johnson closed her eyes briefly. What options do we have besides direct military intervention? Diplomatic channels are open, Alan Morgan, Earth's chief diplomat, replied. But initial communications have been... He paused, searching for the right word. Dismissive. The Corvin representative referred to humans as irrelevant primates and suggested we focus on our own survival. Admiral Peterson frowned. They don't see us as a threat or even worth considering as equals. That could work in our favor, General Hayes pointed out. Surprise is a powerful advantage. President Johnson stood up, walking slowly around the table. Before we make any decision, I want to hear from our Alturian guests. Not just data and reports. I want to understand what they've experienced. In a comfortable but secure facility, near Geneva, President Johnson sat across from Ambassador Zeltar. The Alturian looked better than in his transmission, but his skin still had an unhealthy gray tone. My people have always valued peace, Zeltar said softly. When the Corvins first arrived, we welcomed them as we welcome all species. They studied us, traded with us. Then the harvesting began. The ambassador's large eyes blinked rapidly. First from the outer colonies where few would notice, then from everywhere. Entire cities emptied overnight. Those who resisted were killed immediately. The rest, Ma's voice trailed off. How many of your people remain? Johnson asked gently. Of 12 billion? Perhaps 6 billion still survive. But they take more every day. Why didn't other species help you? Zeltar made a gesture that translated roughly to resignation. The older species have complex non-intervention treaties. The younger ones fear Corvin retaliation. No one wants to risk themselves for another species. Except humans, Johnson said. Except humans, Zeltar agreed. Your Captain Wright risked everything to save a single ship of refugees. No other species would have done that. President Johnson was quiet for a long moment. Ambassador, if Earth decides to act against the Corvins, what would your people do? Everything we can, Zeltar replied without hesitation. We have no military to speak of, but we have ships, resources, knowledge of Corvin movements. All would be yours. Johnson nodded. Thank you for your honesty, Ambassador. 24 hours later, Earth received a transmission from the Corvin High Command. The alien on the screen had gray, ridged skin and eyes that seemed to burn with contempt. To the leadership of Earth, the Corvin said, we have learned of your interference with our lawful operations in Alturian space. This primitive act of aggression will not be tolerated. The message continued in the same tone, listing Corvin, military achievements and demanding Earth's immediate withdrawal from all matters concerning the Alturians. Any further interference will be met with swift and total response. You have 48 Earth hours to confirm your cooperation. As the transmission ended, the Security Council chamber erupted in discussion. Admiral Peterson was already calling for fleet deployments. General Hayes was ordering planetary defense systems to full alert. President Johnson raised her hand for silence. They've given us an ultimatum, she said. But they've also revealed something important. They're worried enough to try intimidation rather than simply attacking. What are your orders, Madam President? Admiral Peterson asked. Johnson walked to the window overlooking the Geneva landscape, where humans went about their day unaware that their species stood at a crossroads. Draft a response, she said. Tell them Earth rejects their ultimatum. Tell them we recognize their actions against the Alturians as genocide, and we will not stand by while an innocent species is harvested for parts. That's a declaration of war, Foreign Minister Clark whispered. No, Johnson said, turning back to face the council. That's a declaration of humanity's principles. The Corvins will decide if it's war. She squared her shoulders. General Hayes, implement full military mobilization. Admiral Peterson, deploy the fleet to defensive positions but prepare offensive capabilities. I want all colonial governments briefed within the hour. And the public? Asked Morgan. I'll address them tonight, Johnson said. They deserve to know what's coming. That evening, President Nicole Johnson stood before a simple podium. Billions of humans across Earth and its colonies watched as she spoke without prepared remarks. Today, Earth was given a choice between looking away from atrocity or standing against it, she began. It was an easy choice. Throughout human history, we have learned, often painfully, that evil triumphs when good people do nothing. She described the Alturian situation in clear terms, not hiding the horror or the risk Earth now faced. The Corvins believe we will back down because we are young, because we are smaller, because the cost of fighting may be high, Johnson continued. They do not understand humanity. Her voice grew stronger. A line has been drawn. Cross it at your peril. This is what we now say to the Corvin Empire. Across the solar system, factories began converting to military production. Training centers filled with volunteers. Ships were retrofitted with weapons that had been developed but never used. Humanity prepared for war. The soft blue glow of Earth's communication array illuminated Commander John Miller's tired face. It was nearly midnight at the United Earth Space Command headquarters in Geneva, and most staff had gone home. Only the night shift operators remained, monitoring the usual traffic between Earth and its colonies. Miller rubbed his eyes, ready to end his shift, when a priority alert flashed across his screen. Sir, we're receiving an unscheduled transmission from the Alturian sector, said Lieutenant Greg Powell, his voice tense. It's bypassing normal diplomatic channels. Miller frowned. The Alturians were a peaceful species humanity had encountered just 15 years ago. They rarely broke protocol. Put it through, Miller ordered. The screen flickered and the image of an Alturian appeared. Its normally smooth, pale blue skin was ashen, and dark fluid leaked from a wound on its shoulder. Miller recognized Ambassador Zeltar, though the diplomat looked nothing like when they had met at last year's Galactic Cooperation Summit. This is Ambassador Zeltar of the Alturian Collective, the alien said, voice trembling. I send this message in violation of all protocols because we have no choice. The Corvin Empire has launched an unprovoked attack on our homeworld and colonies. The screen split to show footage that made Miller's blood run cold. Cities burning, civilians being rounded up and executed, children hiding in rubble. Our defense forces have been overwhelmed. The Corvins are not just conquering, they are exterminating. Zeltar's large, expressive eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme distress in Alturians. We beg the people of Earth for help. You are young in the galaxy, but you understand something others do not. The value of standing against tyranny. Zeltar leaned closer to the camera. I know this is not your fight, but soon it will be everyone's fight. The Corvins will not stop with us. The transmission ended abruptly with the sound of an explosion. Miller looked up at Powell, whose face had gone pale. Wake up the Security Council. Now. The emergency meeting of Earth Security Council stretched through the night. Around the circular table sat representatives from every major region of the unified Earth government, along with military and scientific advisors. The Corvin Empire has 10 times our fleet capacity, said General Sharon Hayes, pointing to the holographic display of known Corvin military assets. They've conquered 3 species in the last century. The Alturians are just the latest. But why attack the Alturians? Asked Counselor Ben Martinez. They're peaceful traders with no strategic resources. Dr. Kim Young, head of xenobiology, cleared her throat. That's not entirely accurate. Our latest research suggests Alturian neural tissue contains compounds that could enable significant biological enhancements. The Corvins may be harvesting them. A chill settled over the room. President Nicole Johnson, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. So we're witnessing a genocide for biological parts. Yes, Madam President, Dr. Young confirmed. What are our options? President Johnson asked. Admiral Frank Peterson stood up. Realistically, very few. We could send humanitarian aid, perhaps extract some refugees, but direct military intervention would be suicide. The Admiral is right, added Foreign Minister Diana Clark. We're too new to the galactic community. Half our ships are retrofitted exploration vessels. We should express diplomatic concern but keep our distance. President Johnson's eyes narrowed. And if it were humans being harvested for parts, would we hope for diplomatic concern? The room fell silent. We need more intelligence, the President decided. Send a scout ship to the edge of Alturian space. Let's see exactly what we're dealing with before we make any decisions. Captain Lisa Wright stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, a converted science vessel now serving as one of Earth's fastest scout ships. They had been patrolling the border of Alturian space for 3 days, staying just outside Corvin sensor range. Captain, we're picking up a distress signal, reported Communications Officer Jack Nelson. It's an Alturian refugee ship under attack. Wright moved to Nelson Station. Through the grainy long-range sensors, she could see a small Alturian vessel fleeing from 2 Corvin fighters. The refugee ship was damaged, leaking atmosphere. How many life signs? Wright asked. Approximately 38, replied Science. Officer Megan Rodriguez. Mostly civilians. Several children. Wright's orders were clear. Gather intelligence only. Do not engage. Do not reveal Earth's interest in the conflict. She watched as another blast from the Corvin ships hit the refugee vessel. Helm, set intercept course, Wright ordered. Weapons, ready forward cannons. Her first officer, Commander Peter Lee, stepped closer. Captain, our orders. I know our orders, Commander. Wright cut him off. But I'm not going to watch children die when we can stop it. If Earth wants to court-martial me after, so be it. The Horizon accelerated, racing toward the scene of the attack. Open a channel, Wright commanded. Attention Corvin vessels. This is Captain Lisa Wright of the United Earthship Horizon. Cease your attack on the civilian vessel immediately. The only response was the Corvin ships turning to face this new threat. They're charging weapons, reported Tactical Officer Ryan. Foster, evasive pattern Delta, Wright ordered. Fire when ready. The Horizon moved with surprising speed for its size, dodging the first volley from the Corvin ships. Earth's vessel might have been outgunned, but its engines and targeting systems had benefited from recent upgrades that the galactic community didn't know about. The Horizon's cannons fired, striking the first Corvin ship with precision. The alien vessel shuddered under the impact, clearly surprised by the power of the human weapons. Their shields are down to 40%, Foster reported, a note of surprise in his voice. The Corvins regrouped quickly, coordinating their attack. Energy. Beams lanced toward the Horizon, one grazing its port side. Minor damage to decks 3 and 4, Commander Lee reported. Repair teams responding. Wright gripped her chair as the ship shook. Target their weapon systems and engines. I want them disabled, not destroyed. The Horizon danced through space, its human crew operating with an intensity the Corvins clearly hadn't expected. After a fierce 10-minute exchange, one Corvin ship drifted powerless and the other turned to flee. Let them go, Wright ordered as Foster asked for permission to pursue. Our priority is the refugees. The Horizon moved alongside the damaged Alturian vessel, extending docking clamps. Captain, Rodriguez said softly, you should see this. On the screen appeared the faces of Alturian civilians, pressed against the viewports of their ship, looking at the Horizon with what could only be described as awe. 2 hours later, Wright stood in the ship's medical bay. The Alturian refugees were being treated for injuries by the Horizon's medical team. Many were malnourished. All were traumatized. A small Alturian child approached Wright. By human standards, she appeared to be about 8 years old, though Wright knew Alturians age differently. The child held out her hand. In it was a small pendant, glowing with a soft inner light. "For you," she said in halting English. "It is our hope stone. You brought hope back to us." Wright knelt down to accept the gift. "Thank you. But we have a long way to go to help your people." The child's large eyes seemed to look through Wright. "You humans are different from others. You fight for strangers." "Sometimes," Wright admitted. "The Corvins do not understand you," the child said. "That is good. They will not see what comes." Wright felt a chill at the child's words. As she stood and looked around at the refugees her ship had saved, she knew her career might be over for disobeying orders. But she also knew Earth could not stand by and watch this happen. The real question was, what would Earth do next?